Hello and welcome. The president in Kano for the 58th anniversary of the Nigerian Air Force, optimistic about the capacity of airmen to tackle contemporary security challenges in the country. National Industrial Court orders CBN and NDIC to pay terminal benefit amounting to about 5.7 billion naira to failed bank workers in the country. All Progressives Congress APC set to hold this presidential screening exercise. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, Rotimi Amechi, Ibikole Amosun and others take their turns. And there seems to be light at the end of the tunnel as AFDB president says there will be no food crisis in Africa despite the various challenges facing the continent, and that citizens will not beg for food.
On Business News tonight, Nigeria's economy grows by 2.6% year-on-year to 3.11% in the first quarter of this year, in the latest report by the National Bureau of Statistics.
On Sports News tonight, French teenager Diane Parry dethrones defending champion Barbara Krejcikova in the opening round at Roland Garros.
And from Abuja, Supreme Court holds valedictory session for another retiring judge, Justice Ejembi Eko. He says the National Judicial Council appears to be a toothless bulldog in the hands of state governors.
Concerned by the security situation in the country, President Muhammadu Buhari has told the Air Force today to brace up to the new challenges of insecurity. He was speaking today at the 58th Nigerian Air Force Day celebration in Kano. He promised the Air Force more investments to boost its air power with the procurement of more military hardware.
Information to your 12 o'clock.
Spectacular aerial displays showcasing the air readiness of the Nigerian Air Force in terms of air power and personnel.
The Cobra formation to your 12 o'clock. Saluting guys.
The national salutes and inspection of parade march past.
Excellency, sir.
And silent drill from men of the Nigerian Air Force.
May we please, and adorning the
Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari congratulates the Air Force for taming the tide of insurgency in the northeast, while pledging to do more by equipping the Air Force and enhancing the welfare of its officers and men.
This administration acquired new air platforms for the Nigerian Air Force, such as the JF-17 Thunder multi-role fighter aircraft, the A-29 Super Tucano aircraft, the Mi-35M and Augusta 109A helicopter gunships, as well as unmanned aerial systems, among others. I am glad to reiterate that these huge investments in the capacity development of the Nigerian Air Force have helped to turn the tide against terrorists and other violent non-state actors in our nation.
The president further asserts that his government will keep the tempo of providing for the needs of Nigerian armed forces towards effective security of lives and property.
We have approved the procurement of more platforms, such as the Beechcraft, some modern helicopter gunships, and UAV for the Nigerian Air Force to enable it to man our airspace more effectively. Rest assured that as a government, we are willing to do even more to ensure the provision of the requisite support and encouragement to overcome various security challenges. You need to continue in order to collectively do more towards restoring peace and order in all parts of the country.
The president also undertakes a tour of the facility. The NAF event was attended by the governor of Kano State, the service chiefs, leadership of the National Assembly, and traditional rulers.
From the parade ground, the Nigerian Air Force Base, the president moved to the palace of the Emir of Kano, His Royal Highness Ado Bayero. After settling in, the president commiserated with the people of Kano over the death of some persons in a gas explosion in Sabongeri area of the state. He also sent his condolences to the victims' families. In the meantime, the former Senate President and APC presidential aspirant Ken Nnamani has been speaking about the need for a bipartisan commission that will study Nigeria's security challenges and recommend solutions. He believes that the current insurgency in the country is surmountable if the right approach is taken by the authorities. Chief Nnamani was a guest on our program, Politics Today.
The first thing I would do is to set up a bipartisan commission. Because if you recall what transpired in US, 9/11, when the World Trade Center was knocked down in New York, incidentally, I was in Old Westbury, New York, that very morning. United States government set up a commission to study what happened, why the failure in the security services. That gave birth to Homeland Security. If we set up a bipartisan commission in Nigeria to study why is how come that our forces perform very, very well outside, but have not been able to eradicate, what do you call them now, the people giving trouble in the Northeast, and the kidnappers, and all kinds of people, all kinds of criminals, miscreants. How come we have not been able to take care of Boko Haram? Is that the failure of our forces, poor equipment, poor sharing of information among the forces? So many things. The commission can unravel it in 1 or 2 months.
And for the 2023 general elections to be successful, there has to be cooperation between the civil society organizations, security agencies, and the Independent National Electoral Commission. And that's the submission of speakers at a summit on securing the electoral process, infrastructure, and integrity in Nigeria, organized by the Conference of Civil Society Organizations in Abuja. At the summit, INEC gave the assurance of conducting free, fair and credible polls. Our correspondent Empress Simon reports.
With the 2023 general elections fast approaching, discussions around the conduct of the polls have been on the front burner. Here at this summit holding at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Abuja, the discussion centers on civil-military cooperation before, during and after the polls. Although the Constitution of Nigeria does not provide for the deployment of military personnel for the conduct of elections in Nigeria, the security challenges across different regions of the country have necessitated their involvement, a development which some have, however, criticized.
When security organizations and agents are engaged by INEC and government, Nigerians, ECOWAS, and indeed the international community expect them to conduct themselves professionally.
This summit focuses on how to promote civil-military cooperation as a way to secure electoral process, infrastructure and integrity in Nigeria.
We, the civil society, we, the citizens, have a role to play in restoring and reinstating security to the country.
The Independent National Electoral Commission makes clear its position to prevent any act capable of jeopardizing the integrity of the process.
Every official of INEC is aware of this responsibility to deliver a good, credible election for the earnings of Nigerians. The era of rigging election is gone.
From north to south, insecurity is on the rise in Nigeria, raising concern about the possibility of conducting a hitch-free election in 2023, especially in some states where criminal elements have continued to launch attacks. But the military and the police avow their commitment to protecting democratic ideals in the country.
The military at any point is more than ready to assist and make sure that the electoral process in the country attains fairness.
We must collaborate and then synergize and do this election as expected of us.
The consensus at this summit is that the 2023 general election is a defining moment for Nigeria's democracy and its survival as a country. Hence the call for collective responsibility by all and sundry. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Staying with the electoral process, senatorial candidates under the platform of the People's Democratic Party have been announced by the various electoral committees across the country. And this follows the party's senatorial primaries that took place today and continues tomorrow, after it conducted a similar exercise for the House of Representatives and State Houses of Assembly yesterday. The exercise forms part of the requirements as provided for in the Electoral Act to nominate candidates that will represent the party in the legislature in the general elections in 2023.
Across the country, candidates vying for a seat at the Red Chamber of the National Assembly have emerged as the People's Democratic Party holds our senatorial primaries ahead of the next general elections. The exercise starts with basic housekeeping by the electoral committees, followed by the accreditation of delegates before voting commenced. After the ballots are cast, the results are in. Some of the prominent persons who emerged from the exercise via consensus are Governor of Benue State Samuel Otom for Benue Northwest and Rivers State Deputy Governor Palibo Harry Banigo for Rivers West.
And, you can be sure that I will represent you very effectively.
My pledge and commitment to the people is that I will continue to do my best. I will put them first. Benue people, especially the Benue North Senatorial District, Northwest Senatorial District, will be my priority.
For the FCT senatorial seat, Senator Philip Aduda is declared winner to represent the party at the polls. There were also upsets as incumbent Senator Matthew Urahide loses out on a third-term bid to represent Edo South Senatorial District in Edo State, while it was victory for businessman Ned Nwoko for Delta North Senatorial District in Delta State.
This is the beginning of a new dawn for Delta State, especially Delta North, and of course Nigeria. I'm going to do my best to serve my country.
The exercise, however, did not take place in the southeast, perhaps over security concerns following the sit-at-home order by IPOB, but will be held on Tuesday as provided for by the party's National Working Committee.
In part two, after the break, CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele withdraws suit on his eligibility to participate in the 2023 presidential race. That's in a moment. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. AFDB president says there will be no food crisis in Africa, despite the various challenges facing the continent. President Muhammadu Buhari in Kano for the 58th anniversary of the Nigerian Air Force, optimistic over capacity of airmen. National Industrial Court orders CBN and NDIC to pay terminal benefit amounting to 5.7 billion naira to failed bank workers in the country. And of course, we told you the All Progressive Congress set to hold its presidential screening exercise. The fear that Africa may face a food crisis may have been doused as the African Development Bank President, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, told the gathering in Accra, Ghana, not to worry, as Africa will not have a food crisis anytime soon. At the AFDB's annual meeting, Dr. Adesina gave the assurance that despite the mounting challenges facing the continent, citizens will not beg for food. He also asked the Nigerian government to reintroduce the e-wallet system, which was first used when he was the country's Minister of Agriculture, to help farmers. Our correspondent Teniola Shobowale reports.
The African Development Bank hosts members of the media at the Kempinski Hotel, Accra, for a breakfast meeting as the AFDB holds its annual meetings physically for the first time in 2 years. From the COVID-19 pandemic to climate change, Africa has been hit by multiple challenges, now compounded by the Russian invasion of Ukraine, threatening the beginning of another food production crisis. However, the African Development Bank's president, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, is confident that the AFDB will avert a food crisis on the continent through its $1.5 billion African Emergency Food Production Plan.
We were not ready when we had COVID-19. We didn't have the technology. We didn't have the vaccines. We didn't have anything. But for agriculture, for food, we are fully ready. Africa will not have a food crisis. Africa should not and will not be begging for food. Africa will produce its own food.
Listing the support of the AFDB to Nigeria, Dr. Akinwumi describes the country as a priority.
We are supporting Nigeria with about, I think it's about $54 million to reallocated fund, $30 million reallocated fund that it will use to support an emergency food plan to produce food in the dry season in Nigeria. And Nigeria will also benefit significantly from the African Emergency Food Production Plan. As I've always said, Nigeria needs to go back and use the electronic wallet system, which I developed when I was minister, to get seeds and fertilizers straight to farmers and cut out all the middlemen. And we are going to help the government. So Nigeria is a priority for us.
As the AFDB's annual meetings commences under the theme Achieving Climate Resilience and a Just Energy Transition, discussions over the next few days will focus on ensuring that Africa has stable energy systems and exploring how to raise more climate financing for the continent ahead of COP27 in Egypt later this year. From Accra, Ghana, Teniola Shoboale for Channels Television News.
We take another look at politics, and as a build-up to the 2023 presidential race, the All Progressives Congress has set aside an earlier date for the screening of its presidential aspirants. But by Sunday, which was yesterday, the party leadership announced a postponement of the exercise, which was meant to take place today. The leadership of the party then announced that the screening of the over 20 aspirants will now happen on Tuesday and Wednesday in the nation's capital, Abuja. According to the National Organizing Secretary of the party, a panel of 7 members, each from the 6 geopolitical zones, and the chairman of the NWC, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, will constitute the committee. The Presidential Screening Committee is to examine the documents, background and suitability of the aspirants who submitted their nomination forms by the deadline of May the 13th. Among those to be screened are the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, former Lagos Governor Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Senator Ibikunle Amosun, and Mr. Rotimi Amaechi, among others. And without leaving anything to chance, Mr. Rotimi Amaechi has visited Kwara and Gombe states in continuation of his tour of states to consult with party delegates ahead of the presidential primary of the APC. In Kwara, Mr. Amaechi, who was in company of the state governor, Abdulrahman Abdulrazak, told the delegates that he will be accountable and turn around the nation's economy.
In continuation of his tour to states across Nigeria to consult with party delegates for support in the forthcoming presidential primaries, former Minister of Transportation Chibuike Amaechi has been meeting with his party delegates in Kwara and Gombe states. In Kwara State, Governor Abdulrahman Abdulrazak recommends the efforts of Mr. Amaechi in the areas of infrastructure and security.
With infrastructure, security and all that, you've seen the work he's done in Rivers. Before he became the governor of Rivers State, Rivers was a no-go area. You just couldn't go there, all sorts of kidnappings. And within 6 months of being the governor of Rivers State, all that was history. He was able to overcome those challenges.
I
Mr. Amechi promises the delegates that if he is voted in as president, there will be accountability and a turnaround of the nation's economy.
I assure you that working with you, things will change. Things will move forward once you decide your own responsibility. And your responsibility is to ensure that you vote for me on the day of the primary. And when we win, we'll come back here.
The Amechi and his entourage also visited the Emir of Ilorin, His Majesty Ibrahim Sulu Gambari, to intimate him on his presidential ambition. The team was also in Gombe State to meet with the party's delegates, which also has in attendance the state governor, Muhammadu Yahya. The governor maintains that the APC is one united party and told the delegates that Mr. Amechi has what it takes to be Nigeria's next president.
I may want to say, as the leader of this party, that these delegates that you see are speaking with one voice, will stand and fight and bring in an APC government, inshallah, in 2023, at both the federal and state levels. And I know that knowing how you handle all the previous assignments given to you and the capacities that you are proven to have will give them the comfort and the confidence to go with you as the commander. If you don't go back into
the presidential hopeful appreciates the Gombe delegates for the warm welcome.
If you support me as you promised, be rest assured that on that day, after we have won, give me 1 to 2 weeks, I will come back here to say thank you to you first. Before we start campaigning, we will go around the state again to thank APC members for voting for me if I win next week.
With just a few days to the party's convention, all the aspirants are making last-minute efforts to get the delegates on their side.
The governor of Ekiti State, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, says that the allegation of rigging leveled against him by former APC national chairman Adams Oshomole is false. Governor Fayemi says his best recollection with the former APC national chairman was in connection with the disqualification of the Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki, whom progressive governors simply defended. According to him, at no point was the conversation tilted towards rigging. Meanwhile, the presidential aspirant says in his first 100 days in office, he'll prioritize security. He was speaking to our political correspondent, Terry Ikumi.
I at various times joined delegations of governors to speak to him in his capacity as chairman over what was going on in Edo State. And I recall that the one issue that we discussed in relation to that was the process of disqualification of Governor Obaseki, because I felt he should still have been allowed to go into the race. And whatever then transpires in that primaries would be seen as the outcome of the party in the state, rather than a premature disqualification over what then turned out to be an incorrect view by the position of the courts later in that state. So there couldn't have been a basis, even if it was the position of governors, naturally, to defend a fellow governor. The basis of it would not have been, oh, Chairman, what we mean is, even if you go through the process, at the end of the day, it's who we want that should be taken on by you. I have never in my life been afraid of due process, and I don't promote in any way, shape, or form brigandage, sleight of hand, rigging, even when it happened to me. In the first 100 days, I'm not going to tell you that I would resolve all security problems. It's going to take time. But there will be no doubt in the minds of Nigerians as to my laser beam focus on securing the population of this country. That would be #1 priority for me.
For the full interview with Governor Fayemi, watch Political Paradigm on Tuesday at noon, only on Channels Television. The governor of the central bank, Godwin Emefiele, appears to have shelved his presidential ambition after withdrawing the suit he filed against the Independent National Electoral Commission and the Attorney General of the Federation over his aspiration. Mr. Emefiele, through his counsel, Mr. S. Maliki, told Justice Ahmed Mohammed that a notice of discontinuance had been filed and served on the defendants in the matter. The development occurred shortly after the matter was called, and Mr. Maliki, who held the brief for Mr. Michael Zekome, said though the matter was scheduled for mention, they had Mr. Emefiele's instruction to withdraw the suit. The lawyer to the fourth defendant, Mr. John Aikpoko Martins, who was one of those opposed to Mr. Emefiele's intention to withdraw the suit, urged the court to dismiss the suit with 1.5 million naira costs. The First Lady Aisha Buhari says the ruling All Progressives Congress should not forget women in the scheme of things as the party picks its candidates for the 2023 general elections. She was at the National Secretariat of the party to congratulate the new national chairman, Senator Abdullahi Adamu. The First Lady was also accompanied by the wife of the Vice President, Dolapo Oshibaju, and the Minister of Women Affairs, Pauline Talon.
We are here to congratulate the party chairman and to thank the whole party stewards on the work they're doing, and also to seek for their support, on women. Women should not be forgotten, please. Thank you.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Anambra State Commissioner of Police says it's no longer going to be business as usual for criminals in the state, announces readiness of his command to fight crime. Do join us again. Welcome back to the news at 10. Over now to Abuja. Here's Makwe Ogun Yusuf. Makwe.
Hello, Ijoma. It's good to see you. Our stories begin in the judiciary, where retired Justice of the Supreme Court, Justice Ejembi Eko, says the National Judicial Council appears to be powerless in the hands of the authorities. Expressing his concern at a valedictory session in his honor, Justice Eko laments that some governors dictate who should be a judicial officer to the council. He says that the council, which is a regulatory body for the judiciary, appears powerless in putting state governors in check.
It's the valedictory session in honor of Justice Ejembi Eko, who has attained the mandatory age of 70. Present are senior lawyers, judges, past justices of the Supreme Court, family and friends. The retiring justice spent 45 years on bench, and according to the Chief Justice of Nigeria, he contributed to the growth of the judiciary.
He is a thoroughbred personality whose name has become a recurring decimal in the annals of the Nigerian judiciary, ostensibly for his robust scholarly disposition and outstanding erudition.
In his final speech as a serving judicial officer, Justice Eko and the body of senior advocates of Nigeria raised concerns on the treatment of a National Judicial Council by some state governors.
Appointing chief judges of the state high courts, the National Judicial Council appears to be a toothless bulldog. I was a victim myself in 2006. Governors seem to think that chief judge is part of their 15 cabinet. In appointing chief judges, the governor's primordial consideration is underscored by quote, the person I can work with.
For the Nigerian Bar Association, there are some attempts to whittle down the power of the professional body.
The bar must take precedence before any of its members.
whoever attains any heights in this profession did not do so because the institution of the NBA supported it. Therefore, we will continue to call on your lordship to ensure that the office of the President of the Nigeria Bar Association is given its due honor of precedence in the order of delivering addresses in this court.
However, the Attorney General of the Federation wants the judiciary to open its books to the public.
The federal government will continue to emphasize the need for the judiciary to embrace open government initiative by showing transparency in budgetary matters and keeping its financial books open for public scrutiny.
This retirement further depletes the number of Supreme Court justices to 15, as against the maximum requirement of 21.
And Anambra State Commissioner of Police, Mr. Echeng, says it's no longer going to be business as usual for criminals in the state, as he announces the readiness of his command to take the fight against crime in the state to a new level. Addressing journalists at the headquarters of the State Police Command, Mr. Echeng explains that the abduction and subsequent murder of a lawmaker, Mr. Okechukwu Okoye, and his aide is enough motivation for the police to go after the criminals terrorizing residents of the state.
Part of the problem is our proximity or boundary with the neighboring state, which is Imo State. That people find it easy to maybe come in and get out and cross over to the other side of it. The security agencies are doing things to be able to checkmate these cross-border crimes that are being visited or is being visited on the states. And I believe that for those of you who go out to hear, to see, from this night, you're going to hear something about that senatorial district, because we can no longer sit. We are taking this fight to them, and we believe we are going to win the fight. Right now, we are into politics again, the primaries, and there is a spike. But for me to say whether there's political undertone, that I don't know. But we are exploring every angle, and whatever will give us the stability that we need, we are going to do so. We don't care whether it has a political undertone or whatever it is. We are looking at the issue of crime being committed. And we are all out, or we will be all out, to make sure that we nip on bud and also attack it from wherever it is coming from.
In other news, His Love Foundation, which is a charity arm of the Redeemed Christian Church of God, is extending its medical intervention programs to the people of Maiduguri, the Borno State capital, with the commissioning of the Enoch and Folu Adeboye Dialysis Center at the Umaru Shehu Ultramodern Hospital in Maiduguri. The pastor in charge of Region 6, Pastor Olusegun Akinao, explains that the gesture is part of efforts of showing the love of Christ to everyone.
This facility is part of efforts of the Redeemed Christian Church of God to ensure that the specialized medical intervention of His Love Foundation is spread across the country. Residents of Borno State are recovering from the Boko Haram insurgency, and efforts like this becomes handy as the state requires centers like this to cater to the health needs of the people.
One of the social services that has been disrupted by insurgency is the health services. And Borno State has been grappling with how to bring back the health services to full function. And with the donation of this, I'm sure that the people will now have access, unfettered access, to dialysis services in the state.
This dialysis center is also today being commissioned because we discovered that majority of the people in the town, they don't have enough money, to treat themselves when they have kidney disease, and also to support the effort of the government in providing this kind of care for them. And we believe that it will be used for the glory of God and the benefit of people of Borno State.
May each serve the purpose for which it is donated.
Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause.
The center, which is a 25th facility set up by the foundation, is equipped with 3 dialysis machines, 1 medical water reverse osmosis purification system, and 1 30 kVA generator. The Christian community in the state is full of praises to the General Overseer of the Redeemed Christian Church of God for the gesture.
Thank you, our Father. We believe that God in his infinite mercy has given you more years ahead beside the years you have, and that God in his mercy, through this love, God has extended his love to the entire humanity, irrespective of religion, tribe, or ethnic. This is purely God's way of doing it.
According to the foundation, over 27 billion naira has been spent on various initiatives, which has impacted over 143 million lives globally. Nevertheless, they are planning to do more.
Well, that's all from Abuja. Melinda Akinlame is standing by to take you through the business stories of the day.
Many thanks, Malcolm. Welcome to Business News. Nigeria's GDP grew by 2.6% year-on-year to 3.11% in the first quarter of 2022, and that's according to the latest report released by the National Bureau of Statistics. The NBS says the first quarter 2022 growth rate represents gradual economic stability after disruption caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. However, the report shows that the first quarter 2022 growth contracted by 0.87% against the 3.98% growth rate recorded in the fourth quarter of 2021. Nigeria will not be endorsing a corporate tax framework being promoted by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD. According to a statement released by the Federal Inland Revenue Service, the proposal by the OECD, which is termed a two-pillar solution to taxation of the digital economy, is not in the best interest of the country. However, the Revenue Agency explains that it seeks to ensure that the country does not lose out on potential revenue from the digital economy. Now to the equities market, where profit takers are still on rampage as the all-share index dropped moderately by 0.13%. Ladi Williams has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. And the week starts off on a bearish note with the all-share index dropping deeper from Friday's close to 52,911 points, down 0.13%. Today's range was between 52,909 and the 53,000 points level. On the activity chart, we see 263 million units of stocks exchange hands in 4,856 deals valued at 3.5 billion naira. On the trio of Jais Bank, GTCO, Transcorp were the most traded stocks by volume, with Jais stocks price dropping about 6% today. And Presco's cooling off its recent run, leading the losers counter with its share price dropping 10% today, while corn oil led the gainers counter to close at 34 naira 25 kobo. We also see MRS and Academy Press on that counter. Well, looks like profit taking continues. Remains to be seen if we see some buying pressure later on this week. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Ladi Williams. It's back to you.
That's Business News. It's back to you, Joma.
When the news at 10 returns, a Russian diplomat to the United Nations speaks about the war in Ukraine, and more stories in Around the World in 5. Do join us again. Welcome back. Let's take a look at Around the World in 5. Here's Simon Pusey.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has told political and business leaders that the world is at a turning point at the World Economic Forum in Davos. He also said the world cannot be ruled by brute force and called for maximum sanctions against Russia, including an oil embargo. It comes after Andrzej Duda received a standing ovation in the Ukrainian parliament in Kyiv. He told the audience only Ukrainians themselves could decide their future. Meanwhile, Russian forces have continued their attacks on the eastern Donbass region following their capture of Mariupol. The Russian Defense Ministry has released footage of sea-launched long-range missiles. Russia is stepping up efforts to capture the eastern city of Severodonetsk, a strategically hugely important area. As if it falls under Russian control, this would mean Moscow's forces will control almost all of Luhansk. A court in Ukraine has sentenced a Russian tank commander to life in prison for killing a civilian at the first war crimes trial since the invasion began. Sergeant Vadim Shishimarin was convicted of killing Alexander Shelipov on the 28th of February. He admitted fatally shooting the man, but said he had been acting on orders. Moscow has denied its troops targeted civilians during the invasion, while Ukraine says more than 11,000 crimes may have been committed. US President Joe Biden has said he would be willing to use force to defend Taiwan in a series of critical comments about China he made in Tokyo.
Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes.
You are.
That's the commitment we made.
Biden's comment, made during his first visit to Japan since taking office, appeared to be a departure from existing US policy of so-called strategic ambiguity on Taiwan, which China considers to be part of its One China policy territory. Following Biden's comments, a White House official said there was no change in policy towards Taiwan. The Philippine Coast Guard says 7 people have died after a high-speed ferry carrying 134 people caught fire, with 7 passengers still missing. The ship caught fire just before reaching the port of Real in Quezon province, about 60 kilometers east of the capital Manila. 5 women and 2 men have died, while 120 passengers had been rescued, with 23 of them treated for injuries. It was not immediately clear the cause of the fire, but the Philippines has a poor record for maritime safety, with vessels often overcrowded and aging. Hundreds of residents have been evacuated in South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal province amid a high alert over renewed flooding. The province experienced deadly floods last month, while heavy rains have forced the local administration to be on high alert to prevent any loss of life. A level 10 warning, the highest and most severe level issued by the Weather Service, remains in place. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is on a 3-day tour of Senegal, Niger and South Africa, his first trip to Africa since his election. Alongside Senegal's President Macky Sall, Scholz promised to keep actively working to ensure successful grain imports kept coming from Ukraine. Germany is hoping to reduce its reliance on Russian energy following the invasion of Ukraine. Senegal is expected to become a major gas producer in the region. Mr. Scholz will visit German troops in Niger and discuss the lengthy battle against jihadists. Anthony Albanese has been sworn in as Australia's new leader and will fly immediately to an international summit. Mr. Albanese's Labour Party defeated Scott Morrison's Conservative government in an election on Saturday. It remains unclear whether Mr. Albanese will form a majority or govern with the support of crossbenchers.
I am incredibly honoured and humbled.
The Prime Minister left for Tokyo on Monday to meet the leaders of the so-called Quad nations, the US, India and Japan. And finally, 580 turtle hatchlings have been released into Cambodia's Mekong River to mark World Turtle Day. The critically endangered Cantor's giant softshell turtles were collected from a holding pool, blessed by some Buddhist monks before officials and students let them go into the river. Due to illegal poaching, the animal has disappeared from much of its former range in Vietnam and Thailand. It was not found in the wild in Cambodia between 2003 and 2007, according to the WCS. But through their conservation efforts, they have released 1,300 hatchlings into the wild in 2021 and have so far released over 1,500 in 2022. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. And Minister of Youth and Sports Development, Mr. Sunday Idare, says the federal government is open to reviewing the 2-year ban imposed on basketball, provided the stakeholders are prepared to drop personal interest in the overall interest of the sport in Nigeria. Mr. Idare insists the recent ban from international basketball activities is aimed at resolving the lingering crisis rocking the Basketball Federation. And that's sports news.
Thanks a lot, Ayotunde. And the main news again. The president today told the Air Force to brace up to the new challenges of insecurity. He did that on the 58th anniversary of the Nigerian Air Force in Kano. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thanks a lot for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Hunyato. Good night.